I've got
It's after 9 o'clock.
9:02.
At 9 o'clock? Okay, we'll call the Blue Earth County Board of Commissioners March 25th meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You wouldn't want to run back, or somebody run back and talk to Drew.
Sure.
He's fine.
Oh, there he goes.
There he is.
Okay, we'll start with the agenda review.
Mr. Chair, there are no changes to the agenda this morning.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Commissioners report on committees. Anybody,
You want me to go fast here?
you want to get started?
Yeah, we haven't done it on this side for a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
That one. March 11th, Kip and I had after our board meeting, it's in lieu of lunch, yeah. We had our RCF meeting and change in leadership for our group, and took care of some other situations. And then March 12th, we were up in St. Paul, Kellyanne for MICA, and gave us a lowdown on the things in the legislative session, how things were proceeding. And then March 13th, actually it was Kip and Will and I who did go to the GMG annual meeting, their lunch. And March 20th, we did have Partners for Affordable Housing. That was kind of a wrap up with our Pedal Past Poverty fundraiser. And then, then it was Will, Kip and I again for the Historical Society dinner on the 21st. Not that's unofficial, but that's what we do. So that concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Kip.
Yeah, Mark and I had a lot of meetings together those last couple of weeks. You already mentioned RCF and MICA, Greater Mankato Growth. I thought they did a good job. Jonathan came in through IT power, so his energy was still in the room. They did a great job. Julia did she must be the chair of the organization. She did a great job doing the emceeing and kind of filling in, but Jonathan's still full of energy, and it sounds like things are going well for him, and they had a good turnout. Got to meet a lot of people that I haven't seen for quite a while. A couple things that Mark and I weren't at together was the South Central Workforce meeting I had. Things are going well there. We're getting some funding back in for some to help people get back to work. The work session was mentioned. Will and I were at Extension. We're going to be hiring or interviewing for the new Extension coordinator for the nutrition coordinator. Will be sitting on that first part of April. Luann was there and just kind of gave us a regional update. Everything's going really well with her. She's been on the job for about 3 months now, and things been going pretty well for her. And the Historical Society, Mark already mentioned it, but that was a good program. Another full house, but over 200 I think they said this year. So it was 150 last year and went up to 200 this year, and some new faces, and got to see some old classmates of mine actually that were there from Loyola days. So that brings me up to today, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Sure. March 11th, of course, we had our Vine building tour.
No, yeah, forgot that.
March 13th was Minnesota Transportation Day at the Capitol, and along with County Engineer Al Forsberg, I met with Representative Breinert, Representative Johnson, Representative Cornish, Senator Sharon, and Senator Rosen, and talked to them about our transportation issues here in Blue Earth County. And then we both attended the Transportation Day at rally that was at the Capitol, 4 o'clock that afternoon. March 14th, I had a AMC Executive Committee call-in, and then that afternoon I attended the Southern Minnesota Children's Museum open house. So it's kind of exciting to see what they're going to be doing with the old bus garage and how they're going to be expanding the Children's Museum here in Mankato. March 17th, I had a Transportation Alliance meeting. On March 18th, we had a work session, and then I attended the Greater Mankato Day at the Capitol that afternoon. Again, with Greater Mankato Growth, and again saw a lot of the business people and a lot of the from the city of Mankato. March 20th, I had a Highway 169 Corridor Executive and Board Directors meeting, and we toured the Scott County's new transit station, which is kind of exciting. It was an old car sales building that they turned into a transit station, and it really worked out well for them. On March 24th, I had a Habitat for Humanity board meeting yesterday, and that was at noon, and then at 4 I had a Greater Mankato Diversity Board meeting. And then this morning I had my Airport Commission meeting at 7 o'clock.
Even up early.
So that was mine.
Wow. And I did see a nice photograph of you in the Children's Museum. Whenever it was you were there,
Yep.
you mentioned, yeah. So I know you were over there. March 11th, our last meeting. Tour of the Nichols Hall. The 13th, I attended along with Mark and Kip and Jesse and Will. Can't remember, were you there or not for that GMG luncheon?
Oh, he was up in
He was up the,
Capitol.
that's right, he was at the couple that day. And I really enjoyed the way they presented Jonathan Zert up there, the way they'd have him at this screen. And then all of a sudden he'd be over here, he'd be over here. It was kind of interesting. But God bless Jonathan, going through that situation, which has been in the paper quite a bit in his life. And we've got Gaburba on March 13th also. Will was there, where Bowser presented the one watershed, one plan. And we had some good discussion there. Quite a few people represented. It was right here at the courthouse upstairs in the 3rd floor. And then mayors and clerks that night, Lake Crystal at Crystal Seasons, where Will visits monthly, and had a good meeting there. It was a little smaller turnout. You were there. Work session on the 18th on Tuesday, which included our highway department, where our engineer was looking at the option of possible turn back for Highway 66. And it was a good work session, hearing about it through Mike Maurer and everybody. And then I took off for 3 days and went to a retreat to be on a team. And it's called Via de Cristo. And it's an interesting thing. It's been around since 1940. Started in the Catholic Church, and now it's the Methodists have it, the Lutherans have it, the Presbyterians. And this is a Lutheran one, and it's called Cursil. And you can't have your phone, if you attend the retreat. You can't have a watch. They cover up all the clocks, trying to get you to separate yourself from the pressures and the worries of the world, and it's good for people to have a retreat like that, I think. So, and then that's my report. Thank you,
Very good.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Quite a bit of the stuff has been mentioned here. Of course, I had the Crystal Seasons briefing that I go to once a month. Drew mentioned that. The Jaburba meeting, one watershed, one plan meeting, mayors and clerks. On the 14th, I had the County Ditch 50 landowners meeting over in Lake Crystal, looking at a project on that. On the 17th, I was one of the judges for the bookmark contest down at the library. It's exciting, that's coming up. We had some real good entries, including entries from adults this year. So, then on the 18th, the work session. On the 20th, I had a meeting at TDS with the executive director and TDS attorney. Then the advisory board meeting that night that Kip has already mentioned, the Historical Society event that Kip and Mark and I were at. And then yesterday I met with 2 landowners regarding the Highway 66 project, and asked for their input on the project. So that brings us up to today.
I just have one other thing to add,
Sure.
Mr. Chair, if it's all right. Last week I went in and did my IT certification for the
Cybersecurity training.
cybersecurity, and I'm not sure if you guys have done it yet, but I encourage you. I did go past the date, which Charlie was nice enough to give me a new password, and I got it done. So, but it is just interesting. It only takes about 45 minutes to an hour, and a lot of good information in there. So,
Good.
you sign it. Took me longer to get into it than it did to take the test, just to let you know. So,
It's technically not a test. It's, you know,
it's a training.
It's a training, yeah.
But there are questions that you have to answer when it's all
Yeah.
said and done.
I call it a test 'cause I passed. So,
That's good.
Well, good. We're got a few minutes. You want to do some administrative stuff?
Sure. Mr. Chair and Commissioners, the first item on your packet is the county board minutes for March 11th.
Move the minutes.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
I've got a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Or correction.
Sorry.
On one of the motions, I believe it would be probably the second page, it says Commissioner Brunder moved and Commissioner Brunder seconded the motion. And I know he's been here the longest.
yeah, that gives you that authority to
But
do
I
that.
didn't know if that...
I
So-
did go back and look at the video, and it should say Commissioner Brunder moved and Commissioner Purvis seconded the motion. So I
Okay.
can make that change.
Okay.
Of course, Purvis, you can't,
I-
he can't really.
I'm sorry,
second it.
people.
Oh,
Yeah.
Now I'm all messed up.
I was
Yeah.
thinking it was me.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry,
I
Commissioner
thought it was you
Brunder
too.
moved and Commissioner People seconded.
I think it was too. And that was regarding the bid for the Southern Minnesota Construction Company.
Yeah, we don't want to give superhuman status to
Yeah.
Kip here.
I don't know, he's pretty good.
And then the only thing I would ask maybe to add, if you want to, is on the Vine building, formerly Nichols Hall, because they own about 5 buildings in town, and just for minutes purposes, I thought it might be healthy to have that in there, so we have a record.
So you'd offer those as corrections?
I'd offer those
Okay.
as corrections, yeah.
Second.
Okay. With that, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Next up would be the bills.
I move the bills.
There a second?
Second.
Okay.
Only
Discussion?
question I have is Hearth Connection payment of $251,353.
That's a quarterly payment for the supportive housing program. We received the grant as the fiscal agent for a 12-county region, and then we've contracted with Hearth Connections to do the administrative end for all 12 counties. So we received those grant dollars, forwarded them on to Hearth Connections, and they distribute it out to the providers of that supportive housing program.
So we're basically a flow through.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, on the first page, the DHS-CCDIT-DTF, I was just trying to, and it was for 29,000, and it says to the, is that,
That's our county share of the Consolidated Chemical Dependency
Okay.
Treatment Fund. So
That's
it's
right,
our,
yeah.
I think the percentage is up to almost 23% now that counties are responsible for those
okay. that's-
treatment costs.
All right, let's see, I had only one more. Floor to ceiling, building improvements, it was 6,400, I don't know if that's, just wondering where it was.
That's here in the courthouse. With the new windows, we needed new window treatments in the basement and first floor, so there are blinds that were purchased.
Okay, that's, all right. Thank you. That's all I had, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions?
I've got a couple here.
Okay, go ahead, Drew.
Let's see here, where are we? Okay, Alpha Wireless. And it says a contingency capital, and I don't know can you explain what that means, Bob? I'm just trying to figure out. It's $31,000, $292.
The contingency capital is that new account that we've created whereby we budgeted specific capital expenditures, but we're only recording half of that cost in the budget because we're not sure if we're going to need to purchase those.
Gotcha.
Trying to bring the actual
I remember that now.
expenditures closer to what we budget.
Yep.
And in this case, it was one of those items that we weren't sure we were going to need, so we put it in that contingency category, but then ultimately needed to purchase it.
So this means we utilize the contingency capital account. It's an actual account then, or it's a...
It's a line item in
Line
our
item.
budget, so rather than a line item listing equipment, we have this contingency that is available for the departments if their need arises,
Okay.
but we've only budgeted half of the actual cost. And so they'll have to, not spend other parts of that line in order to stay within that total budget.
And what, was that like 25,000? Is that what it was, the contingency, or what was that? Do you remember?
I don't recall.
So it could be over what the contingency was allotted for that slot. We don't know.
Potentially. I would
Potentially.
have to look that up.
Oh, okay. And then turnkey appraisals for 10,000. I wasn't sure on the first week still. 10,849 for a turnkey opportunity.
Those were appraisal services provided to the Public Works Department.
Okay, makes sense. And the second week, Marsh and Melanin Agency, McLennan Agency. Administrative costs, it just says, and it's $10,000.
That's costs related to the Ponderosa landfill.
Oh, okay. Probably a attorney, or
I would guess so, yeah.
sounds like it anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, if not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. I believe we're timed for the 9:15 for the County Ditch 73 partial abandonment.
Good morning.
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 Greg?
Only one item on the agenda here for ditches this morning, and that's just to set a hearing date for a petition for a partial abandonment. The reason for the abandonment is they're putting in a hog barn, which I believe is part of your planning and
Yeah.
zoning session in about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
This will be part of that, for that, which you can be hearing there. And again, they have to have certain setbacks for the tile line, and that's the purpose of the hearing. So,
The setbacks are about 100 feet, I think, right?
about 100 feet, yes.
Yeah.
Do you have a date in mind?
Yes, the date in mind, we're looking at April 22nd at 10 a.m.
I'll move that hearing date.
Second.
Okay, discussion? If none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We've set the meeting for April 22nd at 10 a.m. Thank
That's
you,
it.
Craig.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, Craig.
Thanks,
That was
Craig.
hard.
Yeah, pretty involved there.
Yeah. Okay, want to continue on with some administrative stuff?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 3 in your packet is the Human Resources agenda. We do have one action item this morning. That is authorization for the County Board Chairperson and the County Administrator to sign an agreement with the Law Enforcement Labor Services. This is a 3-year agreement covering 2014, 15, and 16. The wage increase that was negotiated into this settlement is set at 2.5% on January 1st of each year. One other monetary change was included in this particular agreement, and that relates to the lead worker pay for the deputies. This increase is 25 cents an hour, which brings the deputy lead worker pay equivalent to other bargaining units that we have agreements with. Other changes to the agreement or language related to cleanup and changes driven by the Affordable Care Act or other state legislation. And so at this time, I'm recommending approval of this agreement.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
The informational items listed here continue to show a story where we continue to receive some resignations from custody officers and fill some of those positions. So the staffing within the jail has continued to be a challenge. We have, though, filled a position in the Human Services Department. The nutrition educator position has now been filled. We also have completed our recruitment for a community corrections supervisor. Let's see, and then another position in the Human Services Department, care coordinator in the Public Health Wayward Service Program area. And lastly, a resignation from one of our maintenance engineers in the physical plant area, and so we'll begin recruitment to refill that position.
Ken, what do you feel that the resignations are from the custody officers, or what's driving that?
Well, there's just been a whole host of reasons. This particular individual that has just submitted their resignation was just hired last August, so my assumption there is that maybe it wasn't a good fit, or wasn't meeting their particular career goals. We've had situations where family obligations have caused people to move away from the area. People, as the economy has gotten better, for some cases we've had people that were commuting a long distance and were able to find positions closer to their home, and so it's really a mixture of reasons that's driving that. In my discussions with other administrators in the area, they're seeing the same situation occurring in their county. So some of it is related to the nature of the position.
I think we've had this conversation, but do we do exit interviews with our employees?
We do on occasion,
Okay.
not always, but we have been with this
With
particular
custody, okay.
group trying to get a better handle on the turnover that we're seeing there.
Yeah, I don't, I'm wondering if it's the amount we're paying them, or if it's the workload, obviously, working nights, weekends, holidays. I mean, there's so much, and I think there's a lot of people that don't understand the stress that a custody officer goes through, being in a cubicle with a bunch of bad people.
I think all of those factors come into play. I think it's going to continue to be a challenge for us going forward just because of the nature of the work. We really have tried to figure out, are there ways that we could implement policy changes that would be helpful, but the changes we made so far have not been all that successful. And I think in this environment where the economy is starting to grow, we're seeing people have other opportunities that are more appealing to them, quite frankly.
Thank you.
Oh, and that's just an informational item. Continue on, you want to do the
Liquor license.
Right, item number 4 in your packet is a request for board action on 3-2 liquor licenses effective April 1st of this year through March 31st of 2015. We have 4 entities that have submitted applications for 3-2 liquor licenses: Cato Cycle Club, Minneopa Golf Course, Prairie Bach Saloon, and Terrace View Golf Course. So at this time, I'm recommending approval of those 3-2 liquor licenses.
I'll also move.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
How many, is this let's see, we have, this isn't, how many do we have?
Well, these are the
Jesse?
3-2 licenses, and then in January we do the hard liquor, and I
Hard
believe
liquor,
there's
there's
3 for that.
3, yeah, okay.
The city of Mankato does all of their own, and Pemberton does their own too.
Oh, Pembroke?
The county only does them if the city, St. Clair does their own,
Okay, yeah. Yeah, no, that's all rural, yeah.
right?
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
if there's no more discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
You wanna take a break now instead of later, or?
We got 5 minutes.
We have a few minutes before we should start the planning and
Okay.
zoning, so we should take a break here.
Okay. We will continue with planning and zoning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. PC 05-14 is a request from Terry Peters and Robert Peters for a conditional use permit to construct one total confinement swine finishing barn capable of holding 800 finishing pigs or 320 animal units. Said request will increase the total animal units for the site to 1,060 animal units. The site is located in the agriculture district in the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter of Section 2 Lyra Township. Mr. Schulte presented the staff report. The applicant was present and commented that he is in the process of abandoning and relocating the affected county tile main. And he added that the affected landowner is his father. Excuse me. A concern was raised by a neighboring resident regarding the potential odor and the enjoyment of the surrounding properties. There was no other public comment. The Planning Commission had little discussion regarding their request, but indicated there may be times of inconvenience associated with agricultural practices. Following the discussion, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to forward a recommendation of approval of the proposed P-lot expansion to the county board, and the board action is for the resolution.
Okay, thank you. We'll open the meeting up for public comment. If anyone would like to speak to PC 06-14, please come to the podium, state your name and address.
Is that 5 dash?
What?
5-14.
Didn't hear you.
Wasn't it 5?
Oh,
5-14, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself. It's 5-14, I should say. Anyone that would like to speak to PC 05-14, please come to the podium, state your name. Is there anyone that would like to speak to 05-14, please come to the podium and state your name. Last time, if there's anyone that would like to speak to PC 05-14, please come to the podium. If there's no public comment, I'll bring it back to the board for action.
Move to approve.
Second.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
I just had a couple of questions.
Okay, go ahead.
I wanted to highlight, we had a good talk yesterday on the phone, George and Mike and I, about the project, and was curious about the abandonment of the tile. And so that it's contingent upon that moving forward after the ground thaws out, I'm sure.
Yep. Yep, I believe it was condition 16 in the CUP was that prior to, I can't remember the exact wording, but construction or proceeding with the project, that process will have to be initiated or completed. I can't remember off the top of my
Yeah,
head,
I think it was in there.
but it was accounted for in the conditions there.
And I don't know what they do when they abandon it, I'm just not aware. What, do they crush it? Do they just block it up? What do they do? I mean, do they?
I had that conversation with Craig. I had the same question.
Really? Is that
Same
all
question
you
you
do?
had. Craig, can you explain to us?
Now, the landowners, in his petition to abandon, is abandoning about, was it about 240 feet or so of branch number 6. Branch 6 is just north of branch 5 by about 300 feet. They're both 80-inch tiles. The 80-inch tile, branch 6, would be abandoned. The portion on the west side of the road there, I don't know if you have a map.
Yeah, I see that they have like a red dotted line where estimated where the tile lines are.
Yeah, and they look like they're pretty close, those lines. They've been diverted to the line to the south, and we did some calculations, and there was more than enough capacity to serve that small area.
Okay.
What happens, of course, about the smallest tile they put in at that time was an 80-inch tile, and there's 8-inch capacity is more than enough capacity. Even after diverting that area to the south,
okay.
It'll still have an excess of a half-inch drainage coefficient, which is actually our modern equivalent. A lot of the system on 73 is actually a quarter-inch drainage coefficient, so that area will still have about twice as much capacity as some of the other areas, even after diverting
Wow.
it.
So Craig,
it'd be
the
not a
question
problem.
was,
yeah.
how do they do that? How do they abandon it?
Generally, they have to break it. I think that's kind of a planning and zoning. We assume that it'll be broken down and removed, usually with a plug. Certain distance will be crushed down is usually what they do. And if you were going to be putting in a wetland or something, there might be a clay plug, for a certain distance. And this is just mainly so I think the manure doesn't actually just flow right into the pipe.
Yeah, if there was a problem.
If it was if it's broken underneath the foundation or something, went directly into the pipe, that would be a problem. So there'd be an area where that'll be broken, and then be capped off at about at least 100 feet. In fact, the petitioner kind of indicated maybe about 120 feet. So we'd be happy with that.
Oh, okay. So they physically have to go in there and do something.
You physically have to go in there and cap it off, too. That's my understanding.
And you remove some of them?
Crush it down a little bit
Crush
for a little
it
bit.
down.
When you dig the hole, you find it, it'll be
They'll
a
remove.
space. You put a cap in, we want a cap on it so we don't have any soil just going into the pipe system. Of course, you'll have a big hole in the field, so you have to make sure that's addressed. And I already talked to the contractor who's probably going to be doing the work. So, and sounds like they know what they're doing, so.
And you guys probably, go ahead.
They
Mark.
just leave the pipe?
Yeah, it's a bit abandoned in place essentially. If you
I just
disconnect it, I'm not sure, it looks like the foundation will actually right directly over the tile. I'm assuming when they dig the foundation,
They'll tear
that'll
that
be
out.
crushed down at that
Yeah.
time too.
For that portion?
Yeah, but about 100 feet away, it'll be broken and capped off. So even if it does get a little bit of manure or whatever disaster happens, it won't get into the main system.
Okay.
So when they dig that site hole, will you go out and check to make sure it's been plugged, or is that environmental services concern?
Yeah,
I
who
mean, we
does
better
that?
figure out who's gonna be responsible for that at this time. So we know if someone's out there, could maybe even snap a picture of it, you know, so we know it's done. So I don't, because otherwise if we got environmental services thinking Craig's taking care of it, and Craig
They're
thinking
not
they're
doing
taking care of it, we just need,
I was
you know,
assuming planning and zoning, but
is that something in the
whatever.
past that you guys have done, or?
Mike would be on site during the construction and
Okay.
and excavation of that pit, so he can
Make sure they dig that
coordinate that
hole
with
and
Craig
plug
and
that
make sure he
spot.
knows what he's looking for and sees to it that gets done.
Okay, so it'll be on you guys to make sure it's done. If you have any questions, you make sure you check with Craig.
Yep.
Or if you're out in the field and you have any concerns about something going on, you let Craig know, because right now I see
I know.
2 people are responsible for it, so it's on you guys at this point, so.
Question I have is, I know when I went out riding with one of your guys here last year, and there's a difference in animal units. Where is that cut off? I know that this is over 1,000 animal units. Isn't there another cutoff for something more, like, you know what I'm talking about?
I believe so. The state and county calculate animal units for this type of the finishing pigs here at different levels.
Right.
At the county level, we view the pigs as 0.4 animal units per pig,
Right.
which results in them exceeding 1,000 animal units at the county level in our permitting side, but at the state level, they are below the threshold needed for a state permit.
Okay.
For pigs, it's actually 2,500 head is the threshold, which is less than 1,000. That's kind of there's a lot going on with it, but
So what's a requirement then at 1,000 animal units or above? Isn't there a more severe requirement for, taking care of the drainage and stuff like that?
from the state side,
State's level.
there would be an NPDES permit required at that point that would involve maybe a more thorough operation plan, things like that. But as far as like manure management and that, they're still required to meet much of the same requirements at this level.
Okay. When does that level change? Is it over 2,000 or?
For finishing pigs, they would hit that threshold at 2,500 head,
Okay.
which I don't know the math right off, but it's actually less than 1,000 animal units on the state level. It's called a GAP site. It's a federal EPA requirement. It's a large CAFO.
So what you're telling me is by county figuring, we're over 1,000 units
Mhm.
here, but by state figuring, it's under 1,000.
Yep. Yeah. There's. two
And that's
different-
why we don't have to go over to the next level.
Correct.
All right. That's all I needed.
I had that question too.
Any other questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. PC 06-14 is a request from Terry Peters and Robert Peters for a conditional use permit to construct 2 total confinement swine finishing barns and 1 total confinement swine nursery barn. The site will be capable of holding 2,400 finishing pigs, or 960 animal units, and 2,400 nursery pigs, 120 animal units. Said request will increase the total animal units for the site to 1,134. The site is located in the agriculture district in the northeast quarter of the southwest quarter and the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter of Section 28 Lyra Township. Mr. Schulte presented the staff report. The applicant was present. He commented that his parents lived to the house immediately to the south, and they have no issue with the request. There was no other public comment. Following the discussion, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to forward a recommendation of approval of the proposed feedlot expansion to the county board, and the board action is for the resolution.
Okay. We'll open it up for public comment. Anyone wishing to speak to PC 06-14, please come to the podium, state your name. Is there anyone that would like to speak to PC 06-14? Is there anyone that would like to speak to PC 06-14? If not, I'll close the public portion of this meeting, bring it back to the board for action.
Make a motion to approve PC 06-14.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Got a couple questions. Just was wondering if you explain the variance procedure or the variance that needs to occur, you know, for this to move forward.
Excuse me. As I believe, I'm not sure which number it was, but I believe the last or second to last condition on this request was that prior to the issuance of a construction permit for that nursery barn, a variance must be granted to reduce the setback to the dwelling to the south of the proposed nursery barn, which is owned by the applicant's father. That was actually an oversight of mine during the permitting process. I didn't catch it before the application or after our application deadline. I was using the wrong setback requirement. I thought there was 1,000 foot at that point, and it turns out it's actually a 1,500 foot setback. So will be meeting in front of the Board of Adjustment this upcoming meeting to proceed with that variance request. And so.
Okay.
Okay, and then I was just curious. So I think it can be up to 1,500 feet for a setback, depending on the prevailing winds. I mean, there's some kind of a thing I read once about how they figure that all in, prevailing and the leading winds and that sort of thing. But it goes down to just 1,000 otherwise. That's what you're saying, pretty much, I think.
Yep, depending on direction, it's either 1,000 or 1,500, and
Okay.
I was using the wrong one when I reviewed it initially.
Yeah.
So
And it's 1,100 feet something, I think.
Yep.
So we're over that 1,000 threshold.
Yep, but not quite to the 15. So.
Oh, okay. Then the second issue is just very similar to the first one, because this is the same family, it sounds like, that's working on these projects. But as the first planning and zoning request, I was just curious if there's some way to know if we're 100 feet from any public or private ditches with these two, actually three structures. Is there some way of knowing, or do you guys have a map or anything like that? Does staff have a map, just like you did the other one you showed us? Is there something like that available?
I don't know if there'd be a map available for that, but just a visual site inspection that we both have conducted. Since the application, I've looked at this site twice driving by there, and I'm familiar with the site just from being in the area anyway.
Okay.
But I know that for this site, there are no ditches, private or public, within 100 feet of any of these structures.
So you checked that out?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all I wanted to ask.
Okay. No other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. PC 04-14 is a request from Peter Blethen and Jennifer Clark. It is a request for approval of the final plat of Prairie Lake subdivision, a 5-lot, 2-outlot subdivision located in parts of the northwest and southwest quarters of Section 11, Leray Township. The property includes part of Government 6, all of Government lots 5 and 7, and the southwest quarter of Section 11. It is zoned conservation and agricultural and is within the shoreline overlay district of Madison Lake, a recreational development lake as defined by the DNR. Mr. Leary presented the staff report. The applicant was present. Following a lengthy discussion regarding the stormwater drainage system, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to table the discussion and to allow the applicant to propose an alternative stormwater drainage plan. No action by the board is required at this time.
Okay. So you will continue that to your next meeting,
Likely at the May meeting.
at the May meeting, okay?
I do have a question about it, though, just wondering, this has been going on, the planning for this subdivision for probably close to a year, if I remember, because I think we've had this here before us before. Last early fall, maybe, we had a meeting about it, or?
I think the first one was in April of 2013.
Okay, so it's been a while.
Yes.
And you guys are still working on the fine tuning of the details, or of the?
That's correct, yes.
It sounds like it relates to the drainage of the site, is that what it is?
Yeah, it's for the new impervious surface, taking into account the drainage of that, and the drainage system that will meet the MPCA requirements. That's
Okay.
what where the applicant is working on now, and has submitted that. That has been referred to an engineer for review and comment, and then we'll be getting back to the applicant.
And that's because it's in a shoreland? Isn't that pretty much why we have
Yeah,
those kind
that
of things?
and the size of this too, it's required for the size of subdivision. Yeah, but primarily the fact of the shoreland of the lake.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank you, guys.
gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we take a break?
Take a couple minute break, sure.
Okay, we're back in session. Phil and Jay, would you like to come up?
It's the Phil and Jay show again here. Morning.
Good morning.
Morning, guys.
Hello, Jay.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, I have a number of action items, not as many as in the past, but several to look at. The first of those is in the disability services area, and it's semi-independent living services contract, and it's actually an addendum for the providers that are listed in the contract itself, in the report itself. Smiles, REM, HSI, Harry Myring, and Prairie Community Services. The services help consumers remain in their own homes through this contract, and the term of the contract is April 1st of 2014 through June 30th of 2014. It's a small window because there will be adjustments made again. The reason we have to do this addendum is there was a 1% increase in rates that was taken up by the legislature in 2013. So it's a response to that action that we're doing these addendums for the 1% rate increase. And you'll see a comment there too that most of the providers' rates are fairly aligned within $4 of one another.
When you say $4, is that $4 an hour?
Yeah, $4 an hour is the variance. So that wherever they're at, they're within $4 of each other. So that's what the $4 represents.
Is this, do we do all these together?
That's what we usually do.
Okay,
usually do.
I thought so, I just.
Yep.
Yep.
Sure.
confirmed.
Second section is under adult mental health, and this is a contract that we've been, or a lease that we've been working on for quite some time. I believe the board is aware. We're proposing that the clubhouse move from its current location to the new Vine building located at 421 Hickory. And this will allow us to continue our clubhouse program and offer easier access to the consumers who use those services to access both the Vine building and the services they offer, as well as the government center, obviously being right next door. This lease is structured as a 5-year lease. The first year represents a 18.6% decrease when we look at rent and utility together compared with our current location. So that is a good indicator in the short term. Over the long haul, we're looking at a 3% increase for years 2 through 5. And the reason for the extended lease is the build-outs, is that they have made that space, working on making that space work for us. And so there's build-outs that are included in that. Our projected start date is May 1st. the piece, I know the board was able to go in and look through the site. The elevator has to be working in order for us to move in, so I think that's going to be the big thing that we're looking at. So we're hopeful about May 1st, but if not, we have May prorated. It'll be prorated throughout the month if we get in later in the month. So that is our status on that lease, and we're pretty excited about that possibility. And then the next item is under public health, and it's through the Minnesota Department of Health and our MTRAC vaccination program specific to adolescents, and this is a grant. The grant allows us to provide outreach to adolescents who need the vaccinations. That's a group that's sometimes missed. The younger children are often identified or more under the scrutiny of their parents and the providers that when they do their regular checkups. Once kids get to be at adolescent age, sometimes harder to keep track of them. So part of our mission there is to keep track of all that information. We do represent the counties in the MTRAC region, which are listed in the board report. The grant amount is $12,841, and the term of this grant is February 1st of 14 through December 29th of 14.
How do you get is that through public health you get to do the outreach?
Right, and so it's through our public health. It flows from the MDH, from the state agency to us, and then our workers are the ones that actually facilitate that. Yep.
Thank you.
And then finally, the last action item is our fee policy. We bring this before the board every year with updates. I would refer you to an attachment within your board report that shows a summary of the things within the fee policy for 2014. Our procedures were all updated. We went through the document to make sure that it does represent our current practice. A couple of significant changes in mental health. We had a split out for mental health policy separate from the regular policies, and they're similar enough that we were able to combine those and make it one policy and procedure, which I think just flows better in the document. You'll see rate changes, individual, family, and diagnostic assessments under mental health as well. And there were some word changes in social service. The only big change that I would say that's substantive is that we do adjust. The final item there is sliding fees, and we always adjust to the 2000, in this case 14, federal poverty guidelines. So we make those adjustments throughout the fee policy. And that's what I have for action items today.
Okay.
I would move to approve.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? If none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, do have some data reports for you today to review, and I'll move through these fairly rapidly. If the board's interested in any further discussion, please either stop me or at any point let me know, and I can certainly give you as much information as you'd like. The first item is about child support, the attachment, child support performance for 2013. So this is the year-end wrap-up. Under child support, you'll see the various graphs and bar charts, and I'm going to just talk to them very quickly. The paternity establishment is when we do try to figure out the parentage of the cases that we're doing in child support. We did emphasize with the workers, our workers, modification and contempt orders in 2013, so I think we saw some corresponding dip in our establishments. Our attentions went to modifications and contempt, and that was because we needed to do some cleanup in those areas, and you'll see the net effect of that, which was positive, but I think it did show up in this particular graph as well. You'll see the order establishment, if you go to the right of the charts, that did trend upward from last year, and it's over state average. I guess both of those actually are still over state average. And then I'm moving down to the left, collections on current support. There is a 3-point gap between our collections on current support, but we are trending upward. This is an area that we've looked at. Our goal for 14 would continue to draw those lines together on support, and overall we had a very good year on collections, which we'll look at in a second. But that is an area that we do need to improve because we are, those percentage points below the average for the state, and we'd like to be above that bar. The converse is if you look at collections on the arrears, some of those that are dated collections is what the arrears really are. We had a $155,000 increase in collections in that area. So kind of where we put our attention is where you see it blip up, and then there's a corresponding sometimes dip down in other areas, and so you see all that in action here. But we're very pleased with that increase, and that was a significant target for us in 2013. Cost effectiveness is a very important indicator, and we are over the state average by quite a bit, and over the target of $5. Cost effectiveness is what's considered very good performance, so that is an important indicator. You'll see our case count continues to go up incrementally, not dramatically, year over year. And then the collections at the very bottom of this page, that shows a $540,000 increase overall in collections. So even though in that area of current support we have a gap, overall we had a very good year from 2012, increasing collections and looking at some of our impact on our focus areas in this area. So that is the child support data that I plan to review.
I was going to mention, something came to mind when you were going through that. Last month I heard on the news, it might have been the beginning of this month, one of the states had a big case. I don't know if it was Supreme Court or what it was, but were you aware of that one?
I did hear about that.
Yeah, where they decided to give credit to the non-custodial parent for their involvement that isn't court ordered.
Right.
They're involved with the children's life. So if they're taking them an extra night a week, driving them to school in the morning, buying them coats in the winter, and doing things, that there is some consideration.
Right.
Instead of trying to knuckle down, and they won the case. So I think we might see more of those kind of issues, I think. And I know last year and the year before they've been up at Capitol here in Minnesota, a large group of people, trying to change the law from an assumed, like whatever it is, 75-25, the assumption.
Right.
Trying to change that to more of a 40-60 or you know, balancing it out a little bit more between the parents. The effort was to do a 50-50, unless there's reasons that the court needs to consider.
Sure.
You know, having the child more with one parent.
Right.
So I think we're going to see some changes
coming.
I think
you're right, Commissioner. Right.
So.
The next slide is about, it's our dashboard for supportive housing, and the first section there you'll see homeless history. That really just emphasizes our averages of the populations that we serve. The average length of homelessness for our folks is 5 years, with the max of one person having 32-year history of homelessness. The episodes of homelessness, how many times they're going through a homeless situation, 4.4 with a max of 16. And again, this is using that homeless definition of 1 year of homelessness or 4 episodes within 3 years. So it's that state definition of what homelessness is. And as you know, there's different buckets with different definitions within them. The second item is enrollment, and you'll see that we served in the families a total of 83 individuals. It's 30 families, 42 children, 41 adults, 83 individuals. And then with singles, we had 40 single adults with 1 youth. And so that totals overall 124 people that we're talking about in this program area. The bar graph to the right, service level, if you go down from standard is the most intensive, medium, low, all the way down. The most intensive we serve, which is overrepresented there, you'll see that most of our cases, our design is about those intense folks that need a lot of contact. So we have weekly contact with the standard folks. The medium is 2 times a week, low is 1 time per month, and then 1 time per quarter is the next bar there. So you'll see most of the folks we have a very intensive relationship with them. And then finally, the housing stability, it puts our folks that have been stable against the state results, and you'll see that our picture is a little more spread out with a little less stability of 4 years or more as you go down. But what we want is not only there to be stability over a long period of time, so that very end part of the bar, we want that to increase, but we also want the percent of households that are stable to increase as well. That number has actually been going down, that a lot of folks aren't even stable for a year, so they don't even make this. Only 50% basically, or 55% of our folks would even hit this chart. And so a lot of folks are real transient still, and that is a reflection of less resources over time going to our homeless programs. So we're seeing an effect of that locally. The rest of these charts are a little more straightforward, I think, than the spreadsheets or the dashboards that I've been showing you. The next one was childcare, and this is basic sliding fee childcare, and so folks that qualify based on income for childcare assistance. You'll see us trending down in 13. We do not have a waiting list. If people qualify, they can get immediate support for childcare. During the time that we were in such a hard time with the economy, we had a quite significant waiting list. So this is actually a pretty good indicator of how our local economy is doing, and then of course there's a reflection statewide as well. But there's still pockets within Minnesota where there are waiting lists. So I think it's a good indicator that things for our community are looking up, and people are not depending so much on that support. The next slide, and I apologize there's no title on it, but it is the out-of-home placement slide. The $1.3 million is what we spent in 2013. Our budget, if you annualize that 13 budget, is about 1.1 million, so we were over by about $200,000. Actually, for the volatility in 13, we see that as a very good outcome. There was a place about between half and 3/4 of the way through the year that things seem to be really trending in a bad direction, and we do not usually make adjustments for overall percentage increases year to year, or any adjustments for the fact that all the vendors increase their rates each year. So there is kind of a pressure we put on our out-of-home placement practice, and so with that taken into effect, I think overall this picture we were actually somewhat pleased. As you're well aware, the really costly placements of kids that have to go and be hospitalized, or kids that have sexual perpetration as part of their problem, are our high enders, and it's really hard to predict, just like on the adult side, how many of those you might get in a given year, and so they can throw your budget off easily by a $200,000 figure, if not a lot more. So, all right. Detox is the next slide. You'll see kind of our trend line. I will tell you our budget just verbally was around $370,000. We spent over $400,000, a little over $60,000 more than budgeted in detox. Of course, again, another area that's hard to speculate on how those waves are going to come and hit us. You do see those spikes and more volatility in 2013. We started the year through June actually lower than our averages, and then it came back very strong in the last half of the year. And sometimes that's due to either situations in the community that happen up at MSU, or law enforcement does an intervention that increases our need for detox. But we definitely saw some trends that spiked on the second half of the year in 13.
Economy was better, they decided to celebrate. I don't quite.
Yeah.
It seems kind of, it's pretty dramatic compared to 13.
It's really true. I think that is a very hard thing to predict. Where I came from up north, when I was in community mental health, we had a detox unit, and it was volatile like that in Itasca County up in Grand Rapids, and same kind of thing where you'd have these waves of people come in. And as we know, when you try to run a detox center, that's so difficult, because there's days where you don't have beds full, and then you have too many, and law enforcement is shipping people all over looking for an empty bed, and people are maxed out. So it's a very difficult reality that they come in waves like that. That's all I had for some of the performance data. I think over the next couple months I'll continue to bring you some of those pictures of our performance in human services. I do have this last section that's some additional data regarding the MNsure situation. I have to continue to report that it's not a easy story. The rocky road continues as far as people being able to maneuver through really the software part of MNsure, and some of our reports of people not being able to see their status and some of the difficulty they have for us, our workers, being able to just look in the system and tell a family where they're at continue. The training issues continue, and so things have not changed dramatically in that regard. These numbers do show trends that are going in the right direction, so if the bad news is that some of the inherent problems are still present, the slightly good news is that we're at least trending in the right direction. First slide shows the overall enrollees, and then the breakout of Minnesota Care medical assistants and the qualified health plans, which are really the privates, so people that aren't on public assistance type of health care, but private policies. And then you see the total bar trending upward as well. A breakout of some of that data is the next slide, shows the same number of how many people were enrolled, but from the top, the accounts created are just somebody that went in, actually entered some information, are identified in the system. Once they clear through the application process, you see that 128,000 figure, and then finally they get enrolled, and that number is 104,000. The next slide, pie charts, show some trending in the right direction. We've talked about what we really want to see in the different age groups is a pretty even mix, and especially looking at the 19 to 25-year-olds, you'll still see an underrepresentation. 5% of the eligible folks are enrolled, or of the overall pie are enrolled at this time, and we'd like to see those numbers be pretty even. They are evening out, so again, there's some good news in that. But the more people that are healthy and well that are in the system, the better we'll do as far as the overall ability to even out the model. And then I thought commissioners might be interested in just seeing the call center, the type of inquiries that are received, and I'm not going to go over these, but you kind of get a sense of when people do call into the call center, when they do get stuck, what are they getting stuck on? And so there's some the top 10 types of calls. I guess in looking through these myself, it looks like some of them would run together. I mean, a lot of people just asking, am I eligible, or how do I enroll? I think there's several of the top 10 items that could probably be combined, and that would be the largest share of people's questions. And then the next slide, and I guess it is the last slide that I have for you today, is the trending of pending cases. I said the problems continue. There are still people that are stuck in the system in limbo, but those numbers overall are declining month to month, so in that way it's good. And if you look back when we started, it's a lot less than it was, so those are good indicators. The fact that we still have 800 cases that are pending is not a good number, so we still want that to come down as quickly as possible.
You have the deadline, is there 31st for?
Yeah,
well, everything's a moving target, right?
It is.
All this, which
yeah, I saw in the news.
Comment itself.
Right, I have to say, Commissioner, I didn't read the paper today, but I saw in the news, I think last night or this morning, that they are talking about extending that deadline just because of all the problems, and we talked about that here, that you can't really hold people's feet to the fire when the system wasn't working, and so I think we're starting to see that gray area that you indicate, and I think people will negotiate, I mean the state will negotiate when those deadlines come, which, you know, is difficult because there is some leverage in that too to try to get those numbers balanced out and get people signed up. That's a necessary piece, and if there's a soft date now out there, or if it keeps moving, I should say, that could be a detriment to the overall picture as well. So.
Then the other question, more, or maybe it's just getting a comment from you. I'm concerned with the medical assistance. Your qualified private. That's really not very high. And then of course, then with the youth not being involved, and I don't see them all jumping on in the next few days, whatever. But you see the medical assistance keeps going up, and I just look at that as a ticking time bomb. You know, we still have our Minnesota Care, which was working, but then we're adding a whole lot of people onto medical assistance, and I just
They always talk
It's a
about.
time bomb, I think.
Right, population mix, that you want this balance, and you're right, if it becomes a medical assistance program, that's not how it's designed, and that won't float the way that it was designed. If we don't have that younger population join, that mix of populations within this will also be detrimental to the model. So clearly it was designed to be an attractive product for all folks, including the private pays, and at this point, that's underrepresented, absolutely true.
Yeah, they're saying it was nationally 1 million people actually enrolled that didn't have insurance before. 1 million, only 1 million, and it's far decreased the numbers that they're talking about, and they were talking before 30 million still wouldn't be covered. The CBO saying that. Well, now it's so. In other words, a plan that's supposed to. Well, anyway, to me, it's another failure, and I don't care anybody can try to sugarcoat it, but it's it is an I think it's an unmitigated disaster. I don't care how you look at it.
I can echo some of those things you're saying too, but I think the other side of the coin is there was a group of people that really didn't want to have a public option, and so they threw that out, you know, and that if they was a public option, they probably would have solved a lot of this, and would have made it much more simple just to sign up for a public option than to have it go to all the way it's
Well,
going.
yeah,
It's
this is what they came up with. So this is,
yeah, there was a reason they came up with this, though. That you had to sign up for through private companies and things.
well, what I'm saying, this is what they passed. I mean, I'm not,
Right.
yeah.
It wasn't going to pass unless they took the public option out.
But this
Just
is
so you
what-
know, Mark.
yeah, this is. I'm just saying, this is what they passed, and they planned it over because they knew the problems they'd have with people either signing up or not wanting the whole thing. So they stretched over 4 years, and then now we see the problem with waivers galore, and then you get into the point, can they even do that? Because they're changing the law as it's already passed.
Right.
So and we're stuck, the county has to do a lot of the, try to clean it up, and how do you clean up how do you make silk out of a sow's ear, I guess, I don't know. That's it.
All I know is the insurance companies have 1 million people they didn't have before.
That's also a fact.
So they're paying into the system.
Well, of course, see, they'll get bailed out if they don't. See, that's the problem too.
Yeah, that could
If they
happen.
don't, that's not right either.
So, Mr. Chair, that's all I had for you today, thank you.
I just had a question though I know these are trends and things like that, you know, but more local question. What about how this hard winter was on some of our at-risk people in our community? I mean, did you see a change? Or are you aware of changes that may have happened this year because we had such a cold winter?
It was
And
very cold.
I was aware of quite a few people in town that were having a hard time.
Right. And I think just that we do have a shelter, I mean, there's not many communities that do have a shelter, so folks that are truly homeless have at least a place to go, and of course that risk of life when it's so cold, it changes that whole scenario. And then for the Salvation Army too, how many people, you use the resources that they plan because you pull in from a catchment area that's bigger than it's historically been. So I think that's absolutely been part of the situation with the weather, Commissioner. Obviously, we heard about the whole propane issue that was out there, and grateful at this point that it hasn't, kind of compounded itself to be a full-out crisis. But there were steps taken to avoid that too. So that would have been another one, especially folks that are on the edge, don't have the money to pay for maybe that fuel when it skyrockets like it was. Hopefully we kind of get through that hard time because it has been a brutal winter. There's no doubt.
I mean, so you've heard things in your department. You've got a whole department that deals with at-risk people.
Absolutely.
As far as instability of where they live and sleep.
Right.
And I know you hired or replaced somebody, I think, in your department up there too, didn't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We've had actually, for years we didn't have much movement at all with the down economy, but we've had several folks either shift around, move within the department, and then create openings. And so we're starting to see movement again about hires and changes within the department, which I think is a good thing overall. It's always an effort in itself just to make sure we find the right people, we want the right fits. So that whole piece has been kind of dormant for a while, but it's coming back, and I think all the supervisors are very active in recruitment processes now.
I've met people in the community that come here from quite a large distance to Mankato because we have some services available. during the winter.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest issues about the
Rural-
weather.
rural
Yes,
people.
Absolutely. And then I can't help it, based on my background, is I think when you do feel cooped up, you know, all winter long, and you're in an enclosed space, you know, the whole mental health issue of, I think we all feel it. You know, you have a nice day and people's attitudes just
Cabin.
immediately improve, and so that's, you know, that's kind of a thing that ticks away too when we
So
have cabin fever.
We're gonna
yeah.
wait to talk to people until Sunday when it's 66 degrees.
Right.
Yeah,
Just
that's
don't-
when you contact
right,
them.
exactly. That's a good strategy, Commissioner. Right.
Just hold out a few more days.
Right.
So I mean, you don't see any more need there than seasonally is what I mean, like a seasonal trend. I was asking, you know, I mean, maybe you
Right.
don't. I don't know. Maybe they just it's status quo. They work the same every week and that's it.
Right.
But I just think, you know,
I think folks that are part, you know, have been part of our community, there hasn't been a dramatic change in that, Commissioner.
Oh.
I think there are a group of folks that are much more transient that do go south. And so that they do avoid your issue by going south, and then they'll come back during the warmer
Oh,
weather.
okay.
And that's where we see folks at the campground or, you know, sometimes throughout the community. And so those folks have a little different lifestyle because they really do move around state to state. And so there are some folks like that. The people that we know and work with are a little more stable in their orientation than that, so there's not as a big, a dramatic effect on the weather because they hopefully are engaging some of the services we
Okay.
offer.
and then we discovered recently too that was it MVAC, that they have a person full-time, I believe, that deals with helping people sign up for enrolling in MNsure and
Yes.
looking at,
Yep,
you know, the
right.
Affordable Care Act and trying
Right.
to, they've got a grant for 2 years or 3 years or something.
Right.
And so they hired another person just
So I
to help
think,
in our
yeah,
community with that too.
I think that's great news. And then these navigators, especially for the nonprofits, there's a way they can get paid to support a role like that. So other, like Open Door has some of that as
Yeah.
well, and MVAC, as you mentioned. For us, we were looking at that early on, saying, do we need those navigators right in the county? But actually, we can't get paid that way. It's designed so that it's more for the nonprofit or the folks in the community.
Oh, okay.
And so really, our financial workers serve a lot of those roles, and there's no extra payment for that. So we really, that's an embedded thing for the counties. And then the nonprofits, if they are willing to pick that up, I
They
think
get
those are-
additional help.
Yes, and then
Okay.
there's revenue for that.
Yeah,
Right.
okay. Thank you.
Good information.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
You're up,
Jay?
Jay.
This is Jay's show.
Hi, Jay.
Chair, Commissioners, the Human Services Committee met on March 13th. We had a guest speaker, Kristen Fredericks. She is a coordinator of the statewide health improvement program, SHIP of Bloor County. This is a component of the Minnesota Healthcare Reform Package with its goal to help Minnesotans live longer and focus on the following: healthy eating, active living, and tobacco-free initiatives. Under mental health, we talked about 3 staff from District 77, social work, psychologist, and a counselor presented information regarding the services offered to the students of the district. The presenters acknowledged that there is a need for more mental health services in the schools. The South Central Community-Based Initiative will hold the next stakeholders meeting on April 8th at 1 p.m. This will take place at the Verizon Wireless Center. Under social services, staff changes for Bloor County Social Services included the resignation of Trish Reestrom and the transfer of Ann Broskov into the role of Child and Family Supervisor. Bloor County Social Services is in the process of developing an adult protection team similar to what is currently has in place for child protection. Social Services has hired a new disabilities case manager, Amanda Vortherms. So, any questions, please send me a Phil.
We're gonna ask you, because
What?
you're gonna know.
answer.
Yeah.
I was just gonna mention, I saw Trish Reeds from this weekend. She
Oh,
helps
did you?
with those retreats that I was on this weekend.
Oh, great.
Trish Reeds from,
Yeah.
she's, since she left here, I said, greeted her as an ex-county employee.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for
Thank
your report,
you.
Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
gentlemen.
Mr. Chair, that's all we have for today, so you can adjourn the meeting.
Yeah, I just wanted to make one comment that I saw in the news last night that our dog Bear won the regional trials.
I saw that.
So another county
very
employee
cool.
we can be proud of.
Is that right?
Four-legged county employee.
Yeah.
Of course,
We'll have to get a
gotta
quote.
gotta give his handler a lot of
Yeah,
credit for that.
yeah,
There's a
that's-
lot of work that goes into something
That's
like
true.
that, and you can't just expect it to happen, but
Nope, that's for sure. So,
we're,
That's good.
yep. So, very good. Well, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.